Hey, it's Emily here from Fresh Perspective. Hello YouTube, I hope you're okay. So this is going to be a video about, I suppose, us returning to this new normal that people keep speaking of. Now, if you're anything like me, you probably don't like the term normal. I think it's just another label that we put on ourselves. Normal means something different to every single person. It's a bit like the word perfect, that means something different to everyone, and it's something that we strive towards and then I suppose never really achieve. And so I do think we need to be careful about the new normal, because was it normal before? Not really. It just was. Whatever it was. And I think striving to be normal is probably not the best thing to be doing. But it is something that a lot of people are talking about. So I kind of want to give my take on this with regards to work and a professional environment, and I suppose how things are going to be returning. And I don't think they're going to be returning to anything like what they were before, because life, the world has changed. So what people have experienced during lockdown is freedom. They've had to have trust put into them from managers, hiring managers, business owners, and they've obviously had a lot more freedom, flexibility, and those kind of things, which they're all really nice things. To be trusted, to have freedom, to have flexibility are all really, really nice things and luxuries almost. But to remove those things from people right now would probably be a really terrible thing, and it will probably change things for the worse, and that's what we don't want to happen. So as we start to bring people back into working environments, whether the office, on site, whatever it is, what we need to start thinking about is how we're going to do that. So if you've got furloughed staff at home, then you need to be thinking about how you're going to bring those back in to your working environment. So we call that reboarding, which is a term that we absolutely love. I do feel like we've made it up ourselves, but I don't think we have. But it's about bringing them, almost re-welcoming them back into your business and making sure that they understand where your head is at. And also, if you hired people before lockdown but you've not brought them on, then they need to be onboarded. But before any of this starts, you need to be thinking about where you are, where your head's at, where your business is at. Now, I'm not talking about a 5-year plan, because right now the world is in such uncertain times that we can't really start thinking about that sort of stuff. But if you don't know what your goal is for the next month or so, and it's really difficult to relay that to your team members and get them on board with your journey and get them to start following you into the place that you want to be. So before you start thinking about onboarding, reboarding, inductions, all that kind of stuff, you need to sit down and have a conversation with the decision makers in your business or with your team and say, like, where are we heading now? What's changed? What is our focus? Has our focus flipped? Where are we as a business now? Do we have new products and services? What is it about us that has changed? And what are we planning on doing going forward? And set some goals and have a think about, has your vision, has your mission statement changed during this period? And I think once you start to do that, you will naturally become more clear on where you're going. You will have more clarity, and then when you start to communicate with your team members, you can communicate much more effectively. So once you've done that, you need to start thinking about reboarding your employees back in. So how to welcome them, talk to them about the changes, communicate where you're heading as a business, and do it together. Talk about how they want to be onboarded back into your business, what they need to feel like, what sort of safety measures, health and safety measures have you put into the business? Have you got your office ready in terms of signage, all the tape? Are you compliant within the guidelines for bringing people back? Have you got hand sanitizer, wipes? Have you had a deep clean? Whatever it is that you've done, make sure that your employees are aware of that so they feel safe. But it isn't just about the practicalities. You've got to make sure that they know what's expected of them as well. Has their job role changed? If it has, you absolutely need to speak to that person about it and almost maybe write a job description together or get that prepared and then relay that back to that person. But at the end of the day, you've got to make sure that person's okay and comfortable with that, and then you're not starting to give them tasks that are out of their comfort zone without the necessary training. Now, if you have hired people and they've maybe been onboarded at home, they still need to be onboarded in the office because they've never had that before. So you've got to make sure that there's a proper welcome in play, and that they know, again, what's expected of them, what they expect of you, how they will move forward in weeks 1 to 4 and beyond that. Everything needs to be super clear. When things are really clear and you communicate effectively, things just run so much more smoothly, and communication is absolutely everything. When we tend to shy away from maybe giving some constructive feedback because we think it might hurt someone's feelings, but ultimately it's so much better to know. It's better to know than it is to not know. The fear of the unknown is much scarier, and when we don't communicate, that's what comes into play. So once you've got a successful onboarding, reboarding process, and that can literally be touch points of communication, who deals with X person when, what are the expectations, what's the plan. It is really simple once you start to think about it and get that written down. Then you need to start thinking about an induction. So this is it could be a 3-month induction, it could be a 1 week, whatever it is that this person's doing, it needs to be laid out what is expected of them in that period of time. And I suppose any training that might need to be done, any feedback, all this kind of stuff needs to be in the induction. It doesn't need to be war and peace, but it does need to be clear and precise, and you need to agree on that before anything does happen. And I think, everything does come down to this communication. What you don't want is, say you came across in a certain way before lockdown, and you were this really high energy, flourishing business, and you've brought on this newbie because they really bought into that. If that's changed and you're going to be slowing down a lot more, or you've changed your services, you really need to be explaining that to your staff, because if you don't, they might not actually be the right staff for you anymore. And I don't mean just sack people, absolutely not, but you need to be having conversations and letting people know where you are as a business so that they can make an informed decision, or you guys can make an informed decision on whether this is right for both parties. Now, it is a relationship, and when things change, when your values, your morals, your ethics, when these things flip, you've got to make sure that other person is on board. And if they're not, you need to be having a serious conversation. And I suppose once we've almost attracted our employees back into our business, or our new employees, we do need to think about retaining those. And it's a great time to be able to look at stuff like this. Do you have a review process in place? And what I mean by that, do you have a process for one-to-ones, probation, reviews, appraisals, all that kind of stuff? Have you got processes in place for all this sort of stuff? Like appraisals and one-to-ones don't need to be huge amounts of really corporate information, but it's got to be feedback, it's got to be expectation setting, it's got to be planning, there's got to be goals in there. And one-to-ones are great because they can be a bit more informal, keeps people on track, a little bit less sort of tense in terms of an appraisal, and you can really get to know people. And I think getting all that sort of planning in now, because I believe that you should be meeting with each team member a minimum of once every 4 weeks. And what we tend to do at Fresh as well, so we've just implemented, because we have 2 team calls a day while we're in lockdown, because obviously we will communicate all the time in the office. We have a main team call on a Monday, and then we do two team calls a day, one in the morning and one in the evening before we leave. But we also... So I run the sort of delivery side of the business, and Laura does more on the sales, and Laura looks after Evie and I look after Jane and Veronica, and we have just a chat once a week where it's just about me and that person, and we tend to go on a walk or something like that, obviously not together because we live far away, but it's nice to just chat to people and check in. So I'm checking in with them absolutely minimum once a week on a call, if not every day, over messages, the team calls, that sort of stuff. And then we have the one-to-ones as well every 4 weeks. So have a think about what you would need from a one-to-one document first before you move on to appraisals and stuff, because they are much more sporadic throughout the year. Have a think about what it is that you're trying to achieve from a one-to-one, but also what that person also wants to achieve as well. It isn't just about you, it's about them as well. It's always 50-50. This is a relationship, it's not a dictatorship. And get something written down and get a process in place. Like I said, it doesn't need to be war and peace, but you've got to think about looking after your team members, giving them what they want, and they in return will give you what you need as well to flourish. I feel like I have given you a lot of information here, but I think coming up with a plan on how you attract and retain your team members will absolutely make your business stand out. And it's not just about doing it now because of lockdown. You can absolutely apply this to when you recruit in the future as well. So this stuff that you're putting into place now is absolutely not just about this period of time, and that's stuff that you can have in a HR folder or recruitment folder, whatever you want to call it, that you will pull out every single time you employ someone. And then every single person who comes into your business also gets treated the same, and they have the same experience, which is really, really important. So I'm going to give you that information. I'm going to leave it there. If you need any sort of help or guidance from us, then please get in touch, because we're always willing to kind of share, because for us it's sharing the love. I mean, if we can make more employees happy, we make more business owners and managers happy, and ultimately who doesn't want that? So please get in touch if you need any other information from us. And yeah, good luck with it all. It's a really good time to be planning, so get to work and have a kick-ass onboarding process. See you later.